You know, Michael Chandler's proven when you say yes, the right things happen for you. Right. And when you get the chance to perform, you put on performances like he did against Dan Hooker, you wind up in title shots. What's up, Barnhill family? Welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
Nick, we got a great live event card. It's going to be a packed stadium here in Houston, Texas this weekend. UFC 262, Chandler, Olivera. You know, this is an excellent card. Unfortunately, we saw Nate Diaz and Leon Edwards get pushed back a little bit. Yeah. And we're just hearing the news that the Edwin Shabazian and Jack Hermansson fight has been pushed, I believe, 1 week as well.
Right.
All that aside, this is still an excellent card, and I cannot wait for it.
Yeah, when you look at the card that's up to date, the one that we've are basically dealing with, unless any other fights fall through, it's still an amazing fight card. So the fact that Nate Diaz versus Leon Edwards got scrapped and Jack Hermansson, Edmund Shabazian got scrapped shows you just how strong this card could have potentially been. But this one still is a pretty ridiculous pay-per-view.
Yeah, it's almost like they made it too good for us. Yeah. And then they had, you know what, those people in Houston are getting it too good. We got to take a few things away from them. But
well, you know, bringing back the fans, they definitely were trying to do big things for us. You know, the UFC appreciates its fans so much, and coming back after all this time off in the COVID bubbles they've been creating, and they've been having amazing matches all over the world. But nobody's been able to be in there for those live moments, and I think they're trying to put as best fights possible as they can on all these cards and give you matchups that everybody wants to see. So I'm very happy with this card just as it is.
Yeah, and Dana said, look, when we come back, we're not coming back until it's full capacity, and we're coming back with bangers. Yeah. And the Jacksonville card was absolutely nothing short of spectacular. Right. This card's fantastic. You look ahead to International Fight Week in July, you've got Connor Dustin. I mean, we got the rematch, Figueroa and Moreno. That's going to be incredible. So, I mean, we got some incredible pay-per-view cards to look forward to. But let's jump into the predictions for UFC 262. So first up, we got Shane Burgos versus Edson Barbosa. Edson Barbosa has kind of gone back and forth at 145. He's 1-1. This is his third fight at 45. Shane's a very tough opponent. Not as much experience as Barbosa. He's only got 15 pro fights, 13-2, but he's got a nice mix of KOs and submissions, 5 of each. So how do you sort of see this fight going?
Well, very good fight, very tough fight for Edson Barbosa, but I just can't bet against Edson that many times in a row. You know, when he went down to 45, everybody was like, oh God, if he can make that weight, because he's a pretty big 55, or pretty lean 55, I should say, he's going to just tear through these 45s. And then he lost his first fight down there, and everybody's like, okay, give him another try. He ended up winning, and I feel like the Edson Barbosa at 45 has still yet to really show us all his skills and come out of the, you know, basically showcase what he's got down there. I feel like this could be a great change for him to go from 55 to 45, and I kind of predict him beating Shane Burgos, even though it's going to be a tough fight.
Yeah, I think I'm going to pick Edson Barbosa in this fight as well. He's actually a slight underdog, a plus 120 underdog, and I believe Shane's like a minus 140 favorite, something in that range. Yeah. Still a very close fight.
Not one to bet on.
No, common opponent would be Makwan Amirkhani. Edson Barbosa's last fight was against him. He did beat him by unanimous decision. Yeah. Burgos did TKO him in 2019, but I'm going to give Edson a little bit of the Edmund Shabazian was on this card, and Edson Barbosa is on this card, and I keep wanting to interchange their names.
It's almost the same name. So
I'm getting tongue-tied here. The common opponent, Makwan Amirkhani, he did get TKO'd by Shane back in 2019, but Shane hasn't fought since June of 2020, and he lost that fight by decision to Josh Emmett. Just on experience, craftiness, being a veteran, and being very dangerous and powerful with his kicks, I think Edson Barbosa is going to get the job done. I think he's going to do enough to wear Burgos down, and I'm looking for a late second, early third round TKO stoppage for Barbosa. Okay. I think it's going to be an accumulation of leg kicks that's going to start to slow Shane down, and then Barbosa's going to find some sort of head strike, whether it be an elbow or some sort of clinch situation with the knees. But I think he's going to be able to slow Burgos down and get a stationary target to get the job done late in the fight.
Yeah. See, I see it as long as the fight goes, it'll favor Burgos, because if it continues into late into the second and third round, it's going to favor Burgos. But I kind of see Edson getting a finish early or losing this fight. He's shown us that he kind of gasses out in the second round, and then it's kind of hard for him. I think the weight cut and carrying all that muscle is what's difficult for that, because he's a very explosive guy. And if you know about fighting, you know that punching is very it screws your energy. You can really lose a lot of energy punching. You lose even more kicking. Yeah. And he does a whole lot of kicking. So I think he's going to come out in typical Edson fashion, try to knock Burgos out, and probably gets it done in the first round. But I think that if he continues and it kind of gets drawn out into a long fight, then it will favor Burgos.
Interesting. Yeah, I could see that happening. Yeah. So your final prediction would be Edson first round TKO?
Yeah, early Edson. Not a fight to bet on. So since I'm not telling anybody to go bet money on this one, I will say, but if it goes past the second, after the first round, my money would all tilt towards Burgos. Yeah, if you're a real believer and you're real bullish on Barbosa, he is a nice underdog to take here. Yeah. Anytime you can get underdog money on Edson Barbosa against a guy like Shane Burgos, no offense to Shane, but somebody who's not in that top tier of the division, and you've got Edson Barbosa as the underdog, I would be inclined to maybe bet a few bucks on him. But as you said, it's always tough in these fights, especially when these strikers, anybody could knock anybody out sort of situation. And I have a feeling these guys are going to give us a great start to the main card. Oh, yeah, that you can take to the bank for sure. That you can bet on. This might be fight of the night if it continues to go on in the later rounds, and Edson has a good first 5 to 7 minutes, and then Shane kind of starts to reclaim some of that ground. It could be very interesting. But I'm going to go final prediction, Edson Barbosa, second round knockout. Nice. So next up, we got Viviane Araujo taking on the former title contender Katlyn Chookagian in a women's 125 matchup. Chookagian certainly has the more experience here, been up against the better fighters. Both Shevchenko sisters went 1-1, obviously defeating Antonina and losing to Valentina, the queen. She's the favorite here, minus 160 to plus 140 for Viviane. Viviane's only had 12 fights, but she has had some great submissions in those fights. Nice. 4 submissions, 3 knockouts. Katlyn is known for her decision victories, only 1 sub in her career, 2 knockouts in 15 wins. So most of them, the vast majority being by decision. How do you see this one going? I think we're going to see these ladies fight the full 15 minutes that they've been, given. Yeah. But I if I was Chookagian's opponent, and I have a really hard time saying her name, Viviane Araujo. Viviane, I'll go with that. It's a little easier for me. Viviane should go for attacking the body. We've seen Katlyn Chookagian showcase that if you do hit her hard enough in the body, like anybody, it's not just her, I'm not singling her out, but if you hit her hard enough in the body, you can really start to diminish her gas tank and bring all of her energy down. And I feel like if you can do that, you can really slow somebody down. If you're a submission artist, that's when you jump on them when they don't have enough gas to fight and defend. So while I do see this one going all the way to the judges' scorecards, I think that the way that one of them would find a key to stoppage victory would be Viviane attacking the body and then taking this fight to the ground. Yeah, and catching a submission. And it would be very interesting, and I would actually be with you on that ride, calling it a submission victory for Viviane, except for one thing. Katlyn Chookagian trains with the Danaher Death Squad. Right. Gordon Ryan, John Danaher. For those that don't really follow jiu-jitsu as closely as we do, it's essentially the best no-gi grappling team on the planet right now. They pump out the best grapplers, and she trains pretty regularly with them, albeit they've moved to Puerto Rico, so I don't know how much she's been training with them for this particular camp. But Viviane certainly favors the submission victories, but Chookagian's got tremendous defense training with the best team in the game. I see Viviane winning this fight. I'm going to say, obviously, decision.
I think she's going to win 2 of the 3 rounds. I think Chookagian is going to come out in the first round, and she's very long for the division. I think she's going to establish a jab. She's got a very good jab and a good teep kick to kind of, she times that well to kind of keep her opponents at bay. But I do think we're going to see Viviani get her hands on her towards the late first round into the second round and thereon after. And I think we are going to see sort of a ground and pound situation that just accumulates for a decision victory for Viviani.
Yeah, I think some takedowns are going to play a major role in who wins these fights or who wins these rounds in this fight. And I think Katlyn Chookagian, if she can stuff a couple of those, she's good at winning rounds. She's good at jabbing, like you said. Her footwork is really good. She's a long fighter. I'm not sure if they're fighting in a 25 or 30-foot octagon. If it's 30, it'll favor Chookagian, and I've got her winning 2 out of 3 rounds. But if she can't keep that distance from a grappling heavy Viviani, then I do see Viviani winning maybe all 3 rounds. So, I'm going to go with Chookagian to win the first round, and then probably deal with a little adversity in the second round and maybe come back and win the third round.
Yeah, she certainly has fights against the more recognizable names.
Yeah.
She most recently defeated Cynthia Calvillo in November of 2020.
Who's a tough girl.
Yeah, obviously lost to Valentina, but was still in the octagon with her fighting for a title. Antonina Shevchenko. So if you look at Viviani, as I said, she's only 10-2. And her biggest opponents have been Roxanne Modafferi and Alexis Davis.
Yeah.
Now she beat both of them. So she's beating the people that are being put in front of her.
But the strength of schedule.
But the strength of schedule is certainly not the same. But even with that said, I'm still going to go Viviani to win this one, 29-28, split decision.
Well, we'll split it because I'm going to go Chookagian, I think 29-28 for the opposite side.
All right, so next up we got Rogério Bontorin, and I apologize if I'm botching that name. That's another difficult one to pronounce. Versus Texas's own Matt Schnell.
Yeah.
And we've actually seen Matt Schnell at Main Street Muay Thai training here and there. He's popped in and out, so bias aside, we certainly are pulling for him in this fight. He is the favorite, a slight favorite, albeit. And this card is really has a lot of close fights on it, by the way. I don't think anybody is a minus 200 favorite or more on the main card.
Yeah, I kind of like that.
Yeah, so we have a lot of close, almost pick-em fights. This is going to be a very good fight. This is a fight between 2 guys that are very submission heavy.
Yeah.
Schnell getting 15 of his victories in his career 8 of his 15 victories in his career by submission, and Bontorin getting 11 of his 16 victories by submission. Obviously, Bontorin, if you couldn't tell from the name, is from Brazil, and he is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now, Matt Schnell has had the better record as of late. He's 5-1 in his last 6.
Nice.
Obviously, the one being getting KO'd by Pantoja.
Yeah.
And then Bontorin had a very interesting last fight against Kai Kara France, if you can remember, when he had France seriously threatened with a submission, and a lot of people thought the fight was over.
Yeah.
Kai sort of squirreled his way out of it and then got the knockout victory. So he's dropped 2 in a row to Rayborg and Kai Kara France, but a dangerous fighter nonetheless.
Yeah.
Great matchup at 125. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, and the matchmakers did a great job on this one as well. Not just this fight, but all of them are so close. They're such great fights we want to see, but that are very competitive. So I really love that, and it makes it hard for people that are trying to predict fights or bet on fights. It's much harder for the bettors than the predictors, but I don't know if I would throw money either way at this, because both of these guys are very good, and they both have the ability to submit one another, right? Very, very talented grapplers. And generally when you see that, you see a lot of basically taking the person's, your opponent's strength and getting rid of them, and then it largely will become a striking match. Yeah. Oftentimes you see that happen, and I do know that Matt Schnell's pretty good with his striking. He's got a decent jab that he's able to, control some range with, which is pretty difficult. So I think we're going to actually see a lot of striking happen in this match. I'm sure it will go to the ground. I would be a little disappointed if I didn't see these 2 guys compete on the ground a little bit, because it would probably be a pretty high level chess match of jiu-jitsu and grappling and chain wrestling and stuff.
I'll be honest, I might be more excited for this fight if it were happening in like a submission underground or a third coast grappling. Not saying that their MMA competition isn't going to be great, but these two guys competing in a jiu-jitsu match or submission grappling match might be just as interesting as the MMA match itself is going to be.
Yeah, for sure. And make no mistake about it, they're very good, both of them, at mixing up the martial arts. But, you know, when their bread and butter is grappling, you always want to see them get down there and kind of prove their skills. And when you have two really good grapplers that don't just X out each other's skills and it winds up being a striking match, but you get a good back and forth in the grappling exchanges, it's really fun. And oftentimes, you know, casual fans get kind of lumped into a category of, oh, they only want to see stand-up striking take place. But I've been watching fights with people who have been very uninformed as far as knowing the ins and outs and the X's and O's of mixed martial arts, really enjoy a high-level grappling situations. They may not know what's going on, but they really enjoy seeing these guys move in such a fluid way on the ground. So I do hope we get to see these guys get down there. And, yeah, a little bit biased with my prediction, but I also think it's an accurate one. I think Matt Schnell gets it done. I'm going with decision, though.
Yeah, I picked decision in the last one for the Chookagian fight. I'm going decision in this one as well.
Yeah.
Just because I think that Bontorin is going to be too good to be submitted by Schnell.
Right.
And I think vice versa, Schnell is going to be too good to get submitted by Bontorin. So what I think you're going to see, and as I said, both of them have good hands, but both of them are not known for tremendous power.
Right.
So while they can strike and they can piece together what looks like nice combinations, and they are nice combinations, they're not really known for that starching KO power. So I think you're going to see some good striking exchanges. I am expecting and hoping to see some good grappling exchanges, some reversals, maybe some sweeps.
Yeah.
But I do see the judges making the decision on this one. And I'm going to be with you on this one as well. I think Matt Schnell gets it done 2-1, 29-28, and another very close, very good fight at 125.
Yeah, even though the judges are probably going to have their hands full with some of these fights, and we're going to end up seeing their scorecards, they're going to be great fights, and we're going to be happy we got 15 minutes out of these guys.
Yeah, well, we're getting into the main event and the co-main event next. So I don't want to give anything away, but I think at least one of those two, the judges aren't going to be needed.
That's for sure.
Okay, so we've now arrived at the co-main event.
Yes.
El Cucuy, the boogeyman, Tony
Yes.
Ferguson, 0-2 in his last two, but hey, recency bias is a real thing in MMA. This is a guy that won 13 fights at 155 in a row.
Right.
He's a decent underdog at plus 150, taking on Benil Dariush, who's got the exact opposite situation going on. He's won his last six, two knockouts, 2 submissions, 2 decisions. Doesn't get much more well-rounded. 32 years old, fighting out of King's MMA, looking like he's absolutely coming into his prime right now is Dariush. Obviously, the younger of the two fighters, Ferguson pushing that 40 mark.
Yeah.
How do you see this one going?
Well, Ferguson's pushing that, but he still seemingly acts and moves like a young man, like a 28-year-old man. So I feel like Ferguson has...
If you've watched The Embedded, seeing him run sprints outside of Astro Stadium at 1:30 in the morning, yeah, most 38-year-olds don't do that.
Right, and he's done all kinds of crazy things throughout his career. So he's pushed his prime a little bit. And I personally think that Tony Ferguson got thrown by the wayside almost by the entire MMA community after losing 2 fights, you know, just because he took a loss to Justin Gaethje and then Charles Olivera, who is currently fighting for the world title, the most coveted, maybe not most coveted, but the most difficult title to get a hold of, which is the 155 division in the UFC. And Tony Ferguson, before that, you know, everybody's luck runs out a little bit, and it's not even really luck, I guess. 13 fights in a row, you have to start calling it skill. I feel like Tony Ferguson as an underdog is almost it's like a must. It's an essential for a bettor. If you see Tony Ferguson as an underdog, you put money on Tony Ferguson, and you're probably going to win something in return. Now, Benil Dariush is an absolute stud, and he's kind of finally getting the shine that he deserves because his skills are really there, and he's a great guy. Seems like a really fun guy. Seems like a nice person. But I don't know if he's going to have the power or the submission skills to take Tony out. And Tony's so difficult to defeat. And this is just a crazy fight for me.
Yeah, it is. And Benil's been quite fun to watch on the embedded.
Yeah.
He's like basically on vacation with his wife who's having a baby shortly after this fight. They were taking horse and buggy carriage tours through Houston. They popped into some local favorite restaurants. So
I love that, but also last time we saw somebody come into a fight week kind of on vacation mode was Conor McGregor when he showed up on a yacht to Abu Dhabi. Now, I understand Benil's not quite doing that.
Yeah.
It's not quite that lavish of a vacation, but I don't really like when I see that. I think you got to come in fight mode. You got to be ready to get after it. And
he's got a lot on his mind, too, with the baby and everything. And listen, I'm with you, man. When you see Tony Ferguson as an underdog, that's as live of a dog as it gets, as they say in the betting world.
Right.
I'm not willing to throw Tony Ferguson by the wayside just because of his age and because of his last 2 performances. Look, Justin Gaethje beat Tony, fought for a title next. Charles Oliveira beat Tony, fought for a title next.
Right.
That shows you what the UFC and what the matchmakers still think about Tony Ferguson. You beat the guy, you get a title shot.
Yeah.
So I think Tony Ferguson is still in this, and he's still got a couple of good years left ahead of him if he manages it right. He's got to change up the way he fights a little bit. He can't get into all these crazy wars at his age. We just saw that with Cowboy and Alex Morano. After you've taken so much punishment, your chin is good up until a certain point, and it can actually get better, and then it starts to reach that tipping point where it starts to decline. And I think Tony has reached that tipping point. He's starting to get a little bit. He's not able to take as much as he could before, which at 38 years old, nobody can. But I think the key thing here is he started training at Wild Card Boxing Gym with Freddie Roach. He kind of got back to his boxing roots. He was kind of nomadic in his training. We had a core group of guys, and they kind of just did their own thing. But I think Tony really needed the guidance of a head coach and somebody that can watch his game from an outside perspective. Obviously, Benil has Rafael Cordero at King's MMA, one of the best in the game. So you got to have something good if you want to try to contend with that. I am going to pick Ferguson to win this fight, but I don't think Benil goes out. I think both of these guys are just as tough as it gets. They embody what it means to be a warrior and a fighter. And I think that Tony is going to win a decision 30-27, and there's going to be a lot of blood in the octagon after it's done, and it's going to be coming off the faces of both gentlemen.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and I could see
fight of the night, by the way, $50K for each of them
for sure. This is going to be fight of the night in my opinion. Benil Dariush, this is his biggest fight in my opinion to date, and if there's anybody that can seize the moment and doesn't seem like they're phased by big, the brightest lights and the biggest stages, it's Benil Dariush. He kind of has the demeanor of a Gegard Mousasi, and he also kind of looks like him. And
that's a great comparison.
Yeah, but I feel like those guys, you really can't get under their skin. If you can, they have the best poker faces in the world, and they should move into acting because they're very good at showcasing something and then feeling something else. But I feel like Benil is very grateful for the opportunity. Like you said, Tony Ferguson is the epitome of heavy lifting. If you have to fight him, you're probably, if you get through that and you're alive and able to compete again, and you're able to win, which is ridiculous. Then you basically get a title shot, and it's been proven in the proof's in the pudding. Everybody that beats him, the 2 guys that have beaten him in the past several years, went straight into title shots. So Tony Ferguson as an underdog, in my opinion, is a little bit off. I think the odds makers are part of the group that threw him by the wayside, and I think they've got this one wrong. I think Tony Ferguson does get it done, and I think we might see a late finish. He's somebody that continues to get better as the fights go on, especially as he sees a little blood and maybe drops a little, sheds a little blood himself. So I'm going to go with a late. I'm going to go with a late submission. I think we're going to see vintage Tony Darce still fight of the night with a finish.
And he would want to put a staple on it and get a finish like that, because Benil does have some no-gi world championship jiu-jitsu medals to his name. So for Tony to be able to submit somebody like that, I could see him really wanting that after he breaks him down with some striking. But I'm still going to go decision, but I think Tony wins a decisive decision here.
Yeah, and Tony, I really like what he's been doing, and I feel like even though he's not getting the results he wants in these fights, he's still competing at the very highest level. And one win, a major statement win, can put him right back where he needs to be in this very jam-packed but very fun and open 55 division.
Absolutely. All right, drum roll, main event time. We got Charles "Do Bronx" Olivera taking on UFC newcomer but excellent fighter, Iron Michael Chandler, the All-American, the wrestling stud. This fight is just about as good as MMA gets. I mean, you have a guy who's kind of short, stocky, extremely powerful, incredible wrestling pedigree, versus a guy from Brazil that is just as tough as they make human beings on an 8-fight win streak with some of the slickest submission jiu-jitsu you've seen. And as of late, tremendous striking and knockout power as well. Just destroyed Tony Ferguson, who will be fighting in the co-main event. And Chandler just destroyed Dan Hooker with one shot. So, I mean, this to me is as good as MMA gets. How do you see this fight playing out?
Well, this is one of the ones I definitely don't see going to the judges' scorecards. I think we're going to get a finish in this one. And, you know, Michael Chandler fights with a sense of urgency. And he almost conducts his career ever since getting brought into the UFC with a sense of urgency, and I like that. He's like, I don't have a ton of time. You know, at 40, I'm going to be retired from this. I don't have a ton of time to be the champion, but make no mistake about it, I'm still going to become the UFC world champion. And I'm really, really happy that we are able to see him compete and mix it up with the best in the world, because the UFC is still the premier organization. They have the best talent, and Michael Chandler was the guy, the absolute best in the other organizations in Bellator. And it would have been a real shame if we never got to see him compete with the other guys. And I'm sure it would have felt a little bit empty for him and unaccomplished if he never got to go up against these guys. And look, he's saying yes to everything that's thrown his way, and everything is going his way because he's saying yes so often. I think we're going to see a serious sense of urgency with him as well. And if Charles Olivera doesn't deal with that storm in the very early parts, we could be seeing Michael Chandler get the belt wrapped around him very early in the first round.
Wow, so you're leaning towards Chandler winning early by knockout.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a little bit longer of a fight than he had with Dan Hooker, but like I said, that sense of urgency is real. You can feel it, and somebody that's literally as explosive as dynamite, like Michael Chandler is hard to bottle up and keep away and keep at bay for a very long time. Yeah,
and I mean, that just pair that with the fact that he's training with Henry Hooft and refining his striking and getting his timing on point, finding the shots that he wants to land. I mean, he's a primo athlete in one of the best MMA gyms in the country right now, as evidenced by their, just their performance over the last couple of years. But I do see it going a little differently. I'm picking Olivera for this one. And I think what a lot of people forget about Tony Ferguson, because he's such a warrior, like as far as like stand-up elbows, slicing you open, and then the snap jitsu, the 10th planet black belt, with the submissions. Tony Ferguson got his start with wrestling. Tony Ferguson is a phenomenal wrestler, and we saw Charles Olivera absolutely out-grapple him from start to finish. Which actually came as a surprise to me. Now, Tony Ferguson is a totally different opponent than Michael Chandler, but I do think that if we get some grappling and cage sort of clinch exchanges going on, which I do think will happen, I think Olivera is going to be able to score. He's going to be taller than Chandler. He's going to be able to pummel in, make a little separation. I think we're going to see some elbows that are going to open up the face of Chandler a little bit. I see this fight going a while. I see both of these guys very difficult to finish. You said Michael Chandler came in and said, look, I've got a game plan. I signed in October. I signed in September. I weighed in October in Abu Dhabi, although I didn't get to fight. I weighed in again in January, knocked out Dan Hooker. I said yes to Olivera before Sean Shelby got the sentence out of his mouth, and I'm beating whoever wins the McGregor-Poirier fight in July. Like, I love a guy that's like that. I can absolutely get behind that. And I think that he and Charles have been clamoring for this opportunity. Now, albeit not in the UFC for Chandler, but he's put together the resume to earn himself a UFC title shot outside of the UFC. Olivera has done it inside the UFC with the best of the best, 8 fights in a row. neither one of these guys are giving up easy. So I think we're going to see Olivera get a late finish on Michael Chandler, and I think it's going to be a TKO finish in the 4th round for Olivera.
Yeah, well, that's a great prediction. You know, Charles Olivera is, while he looks thinner and longer, he's very strong. He's
extremely.
Very, and you know, the way he's able to wrestle and put together his jiu-jitsu is very impressive. Michael Chandler's going to have his hands full, but there's just a feeling when I watch Michael Chandler, and I just kind of see it happening. You know how when you're watching somebody, you can just kind of feel it. And oftentimes my predictions are off, but I just sort of have this weird feeling about this one, and I see it going Michael Chandler's way, and I see him getting it done actually early. It's Charles Oliveira's. You can't really beat the way he's been performing lately. He's just been so dominant against everybody, and you know, I feel like maybe they've got some sort of secret sauce down there in Brazil. Patricio Pitbull, it worked against Michael Chandler. Maybe some of that's going to rub off on Charles Olivera. The Shoot Box team that he's working with seems to be very legit and confident that he's going to bring the belt home to them. Sanford MMA also feels pretty confident that they're going to bring the belt home. You know, going back to the night Khabib retired, maybe a little bit before that, if you would have told me that Khabib's going to retire, we know this before, you know, you could see into the future. These two guys would not have been the people that I would have said, okay, well then who's going to fight for the title? We're going to have Charles Oliveira and Michael Chandler. For one, Michael Chandler wasn't even in the UFC, and Charles Oliveira was not the name that he is now, and he still has some growing to do as far as a star, but I would have thrown 2 other names at you, or 4 other. I could have thrown 5 other names at you before I started to reach into these guys, and of course Michael Chandler wasn't even here, so he wasn't even an option, but as I was watching the build-ups and as I'm kind of thinking about it, these are absolutely the right 2 guys that are fighting for the title. Even with the depth at 155, these guys are just the right 2 guys to be taking on the opportunity to take Khabib's relinquished title.
Yeah, I mean, the tide changes quickly in mixed martial arts. And I agree. Like 6 months ago, I would have never said that.
It would have been Tony Ferguson, Dustin Poirier, right?
Exactly, or something similar of the sort.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this is the right too, and I think that you know, Michael Chandler's proven when you say yes, the right things happen for you, and when you get the chance to perform, you put on performances like he did against Dan Hooker. You wind up in title shots, and I'm super excited for this fight. Although we're differing on predictions, I could see it going your way. Maybe you could see it going the way I predicted. But either way, I think we're going to get an incredible fight. And I am just so glad that this card is in Houston. But hey, guys, just let us know in the comments below. Let's say, for example, Michael Chandler does knock out Charles Oliveira in the 1st round, hops on the mic and says, Khabib, guess what? I've been the best 155 fighter this entire time. I was just in another organization. Is that enough to entice the former champ out of retirement, or will he let his pupil Islam Makhachev eventually get his crack at Chandler? Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. And do you think it could possibly bring Khabib out of retirement?
Yeah, I definitely, that's a great point. I think Islam will probably get the shot if we're, you know, hypothetically that does happen. But if Islam doesn't get over on the champion, then the big bad Khabib, the Eagle, is going to come back and bring the belt back home to Dagestan, in my opinion.
Yeah, that would be incredible.
It really would.
Well, guys, thank you so much for watching our predictions video. As always, we love engaging with you guys in the lives when we drop this, so we appreciate all the comments and views there, and then afterwards in the comment section of the video. And if you've enjoyed this content, please like, comment, and subscribe. It really does help us out quite a bit. The channel's growing, guys. We're almost to 1,000 subscribers. We never thought that it would have happened this quickly, but it's because of you all, and we want to say thanks again, and we will see you in the next video.
Peace.